So, hello and welcome along to another edition of Isolation Interviews for Hospital Radio Reading and for my YouTube channel. And I am super excited to be joined by an acting icon, a music icon, the fantastic Heather Peace. How are you, Heather?
I'm okay. We were just saying before, I've got these headphones on because I'm in my little I've got a little music studio space downstairs, and if I start fiddling around, so you'll have to excuse the look. I'm not trying to be like, oh, hey, look at me in my headphones. It's just if I touch anything, this could go wrong.
I suppose that's a good place. That's a good place to start, really, with your music. And I mean, for you, when did you first realize that music was something that meant something to you and that was something you wanted to do? I mean, can you remember sort of your earliest memories of
Yeah,
music?
completely. No, completely. Music came first. I was classically trained on the piano, but by a lady. So I was brought up Catholic, and at church there was a lady called Eileen Cockcroft. God rest her soul. She taught about 20 odd kids who couldn't have otherwise afforded piano lessons for free. And it was in a church bulletin that my mum picked up, and we had a piano that was gifted to us by my grandfather. And I was always trying to form shapes and make sense of it. So yeah, they just started sending me to Eileen, who took me through all my grades. But I think the singing, I used to always, sing into the hairbrush and all of that, but I used to find maths really boring. Um, and what made it exciting for me was I became what's called a cantor. So you're at the pulpit, up at the front of the church, and you lead the congregation in the psalms and the hallelujahs, and you might sing a song during communion. So I was sort of soloing at church from about the age of 10. It just stopped mass being really dull. That's terrible, isn't it? I'm a lapsed Catholic now, obviously, but yeah, I really sort of enjoyed church music at the time. Yeah.
I mean, one of my favorite songs of yours is the song Fight For, which I remember at the time you released a really, really great music video where you had lots of people, some, fellow Waterloo Road castmates on there as well. And it was just a really positive song. So, I mean, for you, when you're writing music, where do you get inspiration from? How do you do it?
That was actually a co-write with a Scottish singer-songwriter, Horse MacDonald, and we got together in a hotel room when I was filming Lip Service. My manager at the time put me in touch with her. We got on really well. So then with a co-write, it's completely different. You just sit in a room and you thrash something out. You both play a few chords. You start finding a riff. Then you have to feel comfortable enough to sing a load of gobbledygook, and then there might be one phrase that comes out of that, which was "I would fight for" in that particular case, and then you together work out what the song is then about, and you build everything around that. Sometimes it can come from being inspired by poetry. Sometimes the early songs were because I was just in a bad place, and I think they possibly were therapy. It's actually harder to write now because I feel quite content. So I almost have to cynically sit down and come up with a theme. Whereas earlier, 15 years ago, it was just obvious what I wanted to write because there was obviously something I needed to expel. So it gets, in a way, it gets harder the happier you are, I guess.
And I suppose as well, it's a great way of getting a message out there. And I mean, obviously, sort of, you don't necessarily write music to change the world, but it's nice to be able to kind of put stuff out there. And what's it like when you get reaction back from fans and listeners? Because that must be quite nice to know that people are kind of
It's
appreciating it.
insane. It's completely insane because we all have artists that we love that we know every word. I mean, the first gigs where people were singing along, I just couldn't really believe it. And lyrics resonate for different reasons, don't they? Just because I know where I wrote things from doesn't mean that necessarily you will have the same interpretation, and that's completely fine. That's what art is. It's about you take from art what you want to take from it, and some people will like it and some people will hate it, and that's okay. My worst thing is when people say something's rubbish, because it's not. It's just you don't like it. All art has its place and will have its people that enjoy it and understand it for them. Yeah.
Who are the artists that you sort of look up to? Who are the artists that when you were growing up, sort of thought, you know what, I love your music, I love what you're doing?
It was when I was really young, it was Michael Jackson, which then brought me into listening to nothing but Motown. So the Jacksons, the Jackson Five, then Motown, Diana Ross. Then my brother was listening to a lot of Prince, so he became my next obsession. Fleetwood Mac, Stevie Nicks, yeah, and then when I was at drama school, I got into jazz through a duo called Tuck and Patty, who take pop songs and they make them jazz. They're an amazing duo, American duo, husband and wife team actually, which is there's something about Tuck and Patty that you can tell they're together because it's so synchronized. So I have a broad breadth of music love. Obviously, listen to classical music because of the piano. Went to classical concerts with my piano teacher. Church music, and gospel. Yeah, I really do. I like listening to anything. Recently got into sort of country folk with the likes of Little Big Town. So I've gone down a different route, listening to a lot more modern country. Yeah, it changes, depends on the mood. Love dance music.
Does that then
Yeah.
kind of influence where your music goes, what you're
Yeah,
listening to?
definitely, definitely. The last album was quite disco, and I wrote. Well, it was the first album I've produced myself. So normally I'd write the songs, I'd have an idea, would go into a studio, and I'd have a producer, and we'd get it all done in a couple of weeks. The production side of things with the band, but This Love, the album, the last album I did was produced here at home, and then I'd put out for a bass line or a guitar line from Michael. But I was listening to Kylie Minogue's disco album because it was during the pandemic, I know every day I went for a 5K run to try and just get out of the house, and I was listening to that, and I just thought, actually, when I'm performing live, I always just want to get to the fast numbers because the crowd go crazy. So I thought I'll just write a whole album of that. Because everything else had been a bit sort of, yeah, maybe slower. There was quite a lot of ballads, but I'm writing now at the moment, and I've come right back from that again.
I was going to say
So
that was going to be my next question was sort of, are you always working on new music, or do you sometimes have to have a break from it? How does it work in terms of, getting new stuff out?
no, I do have to have a break from it, and I think it's more about my attention span, which is either highly intensely connected to whatever I'm doing or it's nowhere. I can't seem to just pick up for a couple of hours every day. I can't be like that. So I've just delved back in now, and then it becomes obsessive. And when I sort of get on that kind of obsessive train, there's no getting off until it's finished.
I mean, that must also be quite amazing because with your career, you've done the music, you're also, an amazing actor. So how do you find the time to kind of do the both, or is it quite easy to sort of fit the two together?
Yeah, it kind of is like, well, I've been on a bit of a down period from EastEnders the last couple of months, sort of in and out and in and out. So that's when I sort of really get into the music. I've put some dates on that some very small gigs in September where I'm going right back to my roots with just me and Michael in a room of about 100 people. And I love those kind of gigs because everyone's just sat and we can have the banter and the chat. So I'm sort of focusing in on that and doing a few new cover songs, which I haven't done for a while. But I think when your hobby's your job, right? You don't have any hobbies. So the only thing I do outside of my music and the acting and obviously my family life, my hobby is probably hanging with the kids, is going over to the park and playing football or going down to the beach and having a paddle or getting in the sea. And other than that, it's fitness really. I run and I gym. But I don't have any other hobbies apart from that. I don't game. Yeah, there's nothing else I do.
Well, I mean, talking about hobbies, funnily enough, because I did an interview a few weeks back with Lacey Turner, who of course plays Stacey on EastEnders, and I know she's keen into furniture restoration, and also she's now getting into her gardening. So
She's so good.
are those things you ever do or would do, or?
No, there does come a point where you go, I don't have time. If I was to do that, then I'd have to stop doing the music. There's only so many. I wish there were more hours in the day. I'm somebody who loves life and loves learning new things. I think if I was going to do something else, it would be to do a degree in either a language or in history. So had I not got into drama school, I would have done a mixed history and English lit degree. I'd got into Goldsmiths in London. And if I hadn't got into drama school, that's what I would have done. So I might go back to studying. Might be quite fun. A language, I'm not very good at languages. I'd like to be able to speak very good Spanish. Yeah.
Now we should obviously as well go back to kind of your acting, and I mean I remember one of the sort of programs that I became hooked on and loved up until it kind of finished and then it came back was Waterloo Road. Obviously is back now, but what are your memories of doing that show? Because obviously you were in it when it had gone up to Scotland, and it was kind of like a brand new cast really at the point that you joined. So what was that like?
I actually did a series in Rochdale as well. So
Oh
I did
yes.
yeah, and then I went away for a series. I think that's when I did the second series of Lip Service, it might have been. And then went up to Scotland. But it was a brilliant job. Really nice people. Still got friends from there, Laurie Brett and Zoe Looker and Mel, who then went on to Coronation Street and is now in Casualty, isn't she? And we were quite a tight-knit group because we were all away from home. So we were living in these flats in off the River Clyde, and it was like being in halls of residence. It's like being students again, knocking on each other's door, seeing who wants to hang out. Yeah, really fond memories.
Did it give you a sort of a newfound respect for teachers and what they have to go through? Because I imagine it must have been quite daunting when you have to do these scenes in front of all these pupils.
I'm married to one, so she's my wife's an assistant head now, and no, what we do is because she always jokes about the fact that she once did a voiceover for an episode of EastEnders when she was a kid, because somebody in her family worked for them. Anyway, it was like an ADR thing. So she always says she was in EastEnders before me. But I always say to her, because Nikki Boston, my character, was head teacher for like a week. So I would say I've been head teacher before you. So that's my kind of comeback. But the fact is that I already had a massive respect for teachers. Like, it is a vocation. Like, you have to love the job. And my wife in particular, and all the pals that I've met, they're just phenomenal people, and they care. They truly, truly care about the kids. Yeah.
And then obviously go on to EastEnders, which is a very different character to Nikki. Obviously Eve, ex-convict who's kind of also done law, and she's a very interesting character. So what was it that attracted you to that role when it first came about?
I nearly didn't do the audition,
Oh,
because
didn't you?
because we were being asked to do self tapes, and they take a long while, and quite often you wouldn't hear anything back, and it was lockdown, and the kids were here, and it was like finding the quiet space to do it was nigh on impossible. So that came through, and I thought EastEnders. I thought, there's no way. Like, listen to my voice. Why am I doing this? It's going to take all afternoon. So in the end, I reread the email, and it said, "We don't mind your own accent." So I thought, okay. And then me and Ellie just did one take together after the kids had gone to bed. Took us about 20 minutes, and I just sent it off. And it's weird actually, because the jobs I have got through self-tape have been the ones that I've been able to do very quickly and very easily, because it sort of sits right. So yeah, I like to, do you know what? When you get the scripts as well, they give everyone fictional names, so you don't know who you're actually doing the scenes with. So obviously the scene was with Jean and Stacey, but it didn't say Jean and Stacey. So I thought this was like a whole new family, and I thought, oh no, they're going to hate us. All these new people coming in together, and then of course, when I got the job, I found out it was Lacey and it was Jill, and they're both top notch actors. So I was absolutely made up.
Were you a fan of the show before joining, or because I know sometimes actors sort of, they become interested in the show when they join it. So how, what is your kind of past with EastEnders?
I would dip in and out because oh, she'll hate me saying this. I've got to take a drink of water because I'm nervous, because she keeps saying, stop saying to everyone that I'm like the biggest fan. My wife hasn't missed an episode. And the reason being, Ellie lost her mum when she was 21, and it was something that she watched with her mum. So I think it brings her a sense of closeness. And so, yeah, there'd be storylines that would absolutely hook me in, and I'd watch for quite a few months, but I get very distracted, and then I'd be off again. And then there'd be something else. I'd walk in the living room and go, oh, okay. You know, so, and I certainly knew who everyone was and all of that. So it was quite nerve-wracking turning up.
I mean, I think everyone loves the partnership of yourself and Lacey Turner. Obviously, Stacey, you know, your wives on the show, but you're not romantic. It's a great, no, I thoroughly love it. I think it's a great partnership. And I was saying to Lacey when I spoke to her that the great thing is there's no expectation. It's just two mates who really care for each other. So what are
Yeah.
those like to film? Because it does look like absolute fun.
She's fast become like one of my top tier friends. Like I just absolutely adore the bones of her. And I think it was always really important for both me and her that this was a platonic friendship, but on both counts. Like Eve has never fancied her either. It has to be that. And I don't know that I've seen it explored before, the straight girl, gay girl relationship. You know, I've got those relationships with straight pals that nothing's ever happened, and it never would. It would be as weird for the gay girl as it would be for the straight girl, you know. So I think it's really nice to see that there's like a real depth of love, like real depth of love, but it's completely platonic.
And you must love,
And
I was going to say, you must love as well the journey that Eve's taken, because obviously when she first joined, we kind of were sort of learning about her. Obviously, she's now well embedded into, I think she's an honorary Slater, I think it's fair to say now. Um, but I mean, for you, is there anything going forward that you would love to see Eve kind of go through? Any storylines you would love to see her have?
yeah, there is. I don't really want to say because I sort of put a few things forward. So I'm not going to sort of say on here if that's okay, but I think, you know, it has all been about Suki's journey, and Nish and Eve and all of that. And I think the beauty of soap is that you have time to explore these things properly. So yes, I want to see more of who Eve was, of her backstory and all of that. But I'm okay to take the time to get there as well, because you can throw all this stuff at people very quickly, and then what are you left with? So we're still on that trajectory at the moment. But I think what's interesting about Eve, sometimes it's written, I think, like she's never had money, like she's never. The way I see Eve is that she would have been a lawyer for probably at least 15, if not 20 years prior to going to prison. So she knows what it is to have money. She knows what it is to be a professional woman. She knows, and she's rejected all of that. And part of the working on the back van and everything else, I don't think it's that I just think she's rejected the normal trajectory of where she should really be in society with the level of intelligence she's got. And I quite like that about her. She don't care about money. She literally cares about the relationships of the people that she loves and just getting by and having a nice life. And yeah. And then she's got that little added twitch where she can she can lose it as well, which is always fun.
Now we must talk a bit about Eve and Suki, because did you ever realize quite the impact that the characters would have with the audience and how much love there would be for them as a couple?
I think the underrepresentation of lesbian couples meant that it was always going to get some attention. I think then it's about taking time to get the details right and having an opportunity to do this on this kind of platform where maybe my nan, who was Catholic, who thought that being gay was a sin. I feel like if she was alive now, she could have watched that love story and perhaps it would have changed a bit of her heart to go, it's a love story. So I think the writers and the producers always knew what they wanted to do, that they wanted to take their time with it. And then me and Bal coming in and wanting to make it a love story, and the writers, everybody getting on board. I feel like it's a real collaborative attempt to make something beautiful. So it's thanks to everybody, really. It's just proper teamwork, and we were all sort of hoping for that happy ending and that kind of, yeah, I don't. Yeah, it's been interesting.
I mean, I would just like to say I hope you're all feeling really proud about it because it is fantastic. I mean, EastEnders as a whole is just top of the game, at the moment. It's the best it's been for a long time. So,
Yeah.
I mean, how do you guys feel kind of at kind of base level with everything? You must be super proud, super happy with it all.
Yeah, we are. I think as an ensemble, it does feel like an ensemble show. Like for example, me and Bal and Lacey haven't been on screen for a while, and that's good because there's like 50 cast. So it's just showing you that these stories take over for a while and then we will be back, and it's the cast is such that it's that strong that any strand can take over and it'll all be on a level. So we are feeling good because everyone's really supportive. We've got a little WhatsApp group, and when the Yolandi story happened and things like that, everybody's on there sort of saying well done to each other. It feels like a team effort is all I can say, really. Yeah.
Now, I just want to say it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. But before we go, I just wanted to ask if there's any messages you'd like to give to any of the patients who are currently in hospital or to the amazing NHS staff that are just working tirelessly at the moment. What would you like to say to them?
Oh, they work tirelessly day in, day out, don't they? We've had our own things family-wise recently. And the NHS staff that we encountered were just second to none. It has to be a vocation. I know you absolutely do it with all of your hearts. And yeah, I just hope they give you some rest at some point. But yeah, lots of love to everyone who's in hospital, and I hope you get well soon. And yeah, brilliant NHS staff. Thank you so much for everything that you do.
And we must just say they must keep watching EastEnders because it is so good at the moment. As I say,
Yes.
Monday to Thursday, 7:30, or else you can watch it on iPlayer. Heather, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. You are welcome back
Thank you,
anytime.
Matthew. Thanks, mate. Cheers.